Okay, so this is my first Fromm video recording. I will be reading a passage from Man for Himself on page 20, chapter 3. It's called The Science of Man, and it deals with ethics and human nature. So I'll begin. Authoritarian thinkers have conveniently assumed the existence of a human nature, which they believe was fixed and unchangeable. This assumption served to prove that their ethical systems and social institutions were necessary and unchangeable, being built upon the alleged nature of man. However, what they considered to be man's nature was a reflection of their norms and interests, and not the result of objective inquiry. It was therefore understandable that progressives should welcome the findings of anthropology and psychology, which, in contrast, seem to establish the infinite malleability of human nature. For malleability meant that norms and institutions, the assumed cause of man's nature rather than the effect, could be malleable too. But in opposing the erroneous assumption that certain historical cultural patterns are the expression of a fixed and eternal human nature, the adherents of the theory of the infinite malleability of human nature arrived at an equally untenable position. I'll skip ahead a little bit to the paragraph that I really was interested in. On the next page over, it goes, "Man is not a blank sheet of paper on which culture can write its text. He is an entity, charged with energy and structured in specific ways, which, while adapting itself, reacts in specific and ascertainable ways to external conditions. If man had adapted himself to external conditions autoplastically, by changing his own nature like an animal, and were fit to live under only one set of conditions to which he developed a special adaptation, he would have reached the blind alley of specialization, which is the fate of every animal species, thus precluding history. If, on the other hand, man could adapt himself to all conditions without fighting those which are against his nature, he would have had no history either. Human evolution is rooted in man's adaptability and in certain indestructible qualities of his nature which compel him never to cease his search for conditions better adjusted to his intrinsic needs." So, basically Fromm is discussing what the science of man is about, and he goes on to talk about how the science of man is our ethics and virtue versus vice, and but what the key about this whole introduction into the science of man is that man is unique in the sense that we have our own intrinsic human nature, these core values that run throughout our species that every man holds, like in the very most basic kind of elements. But the other key part that balances us out is the fact that we are adaptable. Fromm talks about how man could adapt himself to slavery, but he reacts to it by lowering his intellectual and moral qualities. He can adapt himself to a culture pre-mediated by mutual distrust and hostility, but he reacts to this adaptation by becoming weak and sterile. So it's not that we adapt to everything so easily that we lose sight of what's good for us or what's beneficial for us. As we all know, slavery didn't hold because the slaves didn't like being slaves. Man wants freedom, and that's one of those intrinsic qualities that we're constantly searching for. Freedom, happiness, virtue, all of those, the science of man, our ethics, our core values, they're intrinsically based, but because of the external conditions, they're all affected in a unique manner, which kind of sets up who we are as a society, a culture, a family, a person. All of those are just kind of reflections of how our intrinsic natural qualities are related to our external conditions. And I thought that was really cool. Fromm never really talks about these black or white topics. It's always kind of, we're not this or that, we're kind of both. And I think this is a really good explanation of how a lot of the times we can feel socially awkward or uncomfortable, and we keep searching for these this freedom, this happiness, these intrinsic qualities which are just part of us, and it makes us human. So I don't know. I thought that really spoke out to me when I was reading, and I wanted to talk about it. So hopefully we can maybe discuss this more if anyone has any questions. All right, thanks.